Hello, this is Nick from the YouTube channel The Shogunate, and in this video for Clash of Katanas, we're going to be discussing the Hojo clan, specifically during the Sengoku Jidai. The Hojo are one of the most interesting clans during Japan's Warring States period, but also largely because they actually had two iterations of their existence. The original Hojo, who came to dominate the Kamakura Shogunate, and many years after, the Go-Hojo or later Hojo, who would come to control the Kanto region throughout much of the Sengoku period. The later Hojo would begin with a figure named Issei Shinkuro, known posthumously and more commonly today as Hojo Son. Son is a rather mysterious figure, but he would eventually come to serve the Imagawa clan in the 1470s. His skills as a fine military commander shined early on, yet he always held higher ambitions of his own. In the 1490s, he decided to intervene in a succession dispute in neighboring Izu province, where from there, after seizing the territory, he would break free from the Imagawa and start his own clan. Because of this, he is often regarded as one of the first Sengoku daimyo and one of the earliest figures who partook in Gekkokujo, the lower toppling the higher. From there, he began encroaching on Uesugi territory in the Kanto region, launching successful attacks into Sagami, winning glorious victories at Odawara, Arai, and Kamakura. However, he would come to die in 1519, where he was then succeeded by his son Hojo Ujitsuna, the figure who is often regarded as the leader who officially adopted the old Hojo family name. Their new power base would also be moved to Odawara, which would in time come to be known as one of the mightiest castles in all of Japan. Ujitsuna continued in his father's footsteps, expanding deeper into Kanto, continuing to exploit the weakness of the disjointed Uesugi forces. However, the Uesugi would succeed in one regard when in 1535 they attacked Kamakura and burned it to the ground. In the aftermath, Ujitsuna would rebuild it anew. He would also win the significant First Battle of Konodai against the Satomi and Ashikaga forces. Under his leadership, the majority of the Kanto region would come to fall into his hands. And when he died in 1541, the clan would be passed on to his son, Hojo Ujiyasu, a figure often remembered today as the Lion of Sagami. Although Ujiyasu would not necessarily expand the borders of the Hojo as much as his forefathers, his time ruling the clan would be spent valiantly defending Hojo rule over the Kanto region, with one of his earliest triumphs breaking the siege of Kawagoe Castle in 1546. A momentous moment that shattered much of the Uesugi's power and ability to fight back against the Hojo. Later on, he would be party to a three-way alliance between the Hojo, Imagawa, and Takeda, an alliance orchestrated by Imagawa Yoshimoto, and would work to secure their borders and allow for each of them to expand outward. Ujiyasu would come to retire as the official head of the family in 1559, yet he kept the majority of control over the clan. Yet in 1561, with Uesugi Kenshin having re-strengthened the Uesugi clan, he would launch a campaign down against the Hojo, one which besieged Odawara. However, Kenshin would never be able to capitalize on his advantage and would be drawn away due to threat from the Takeda. Several years later, in 1564, Ujiyasu would win the Second Battle of Konodai and began pushing into Shimosa and Kazusa provinces. By the late 1560s, with the Imagawa clan's collapse, the Hojo and Takeda would soon be back at war, as the Takeda began launching attacks into Musashi province, yet the Hojo would hold firm. Ujiyasu would come to die in 1571. Yet his son Ujimasa was already in a prime position to continue safeguarding the region. Eventually, by 1582, the Takeda would collapse, and with the earlier death of Kenshin in 1578, the Hojo were in a fantastic spot to rule the entire East. However, with the death of Oda Nobunaga in 1582 as well, the Hojo were soon forced into a bitter land grab, competing against the Tokugawa clan over the scraps of territory that were left in Kai, Kotsuke, and Shinano. In the end, the Tokugawa would secure Kai and Shinano while the Hojo took Kotsuke. However, it was here they would come to clash with the small Sanada family, who held territory in both Shinano and Kotsuke. They had sworn themselves to the Tokugawa and were to relinquish Numata Castle to the Hojo, but that would never happen. Eventually, by 1585, the Tokugawa would attack the Sanada power base at Ueda, while the Hojo attacked Numata. Yet the Sanada would hold out long enough for the intervention of the Toyotomi, who would come in to protect the Sanada. With this great injustice, the Hojo and Toyotomi would be on very bad terms, and finally, by 1590, with the Hojo continuing to dismiss Toyotomi calls for submission, Toyotomi Hideyoshi would march east to lay siege to Odawara. The Hojo would attempt to hold up inside the castle, but Hideyoshi countered this by creating a siege city that allowed his army to stay indefinitely satisfied while the Hojo supplies ran out. With no other option, the Hojo would be forced to surrender, with Ujimasa having to take his life. The later Hojo would be officially destroyed, and although their family name would technically live on, they did so with little to no significance. Still, their prominent position, glorious victories, and legacy dating back to the original Hojo make the Go-Hojo one of the most iconic clans of the Sengoku Jidai.